Greetings, ladies and militants, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Trechery, written by TheCurserHasntMoved. Zam had often heard it said, "Do not betray a human," and he hadn't. Everyone knew how spiteful, how vengeful, how vindictive the normally adorable Hellwolders were if you betrayed their trust. Normally, it was stories about neighbors making life miserable for the offending person, or co-workers making the daily grind unnecessarily tedious for petty satisfaction. However, in the line of work Zam was in, planetary surveying, things could get a lot more dangerous than getting scolded by the corporate manager, or paying a fine to the city. Which is why Zam had always made a point to never, ever, even accidentally fail to meet his end of the bargain with his bodyguards. The human ones, anyway. In point of fact, he even put his ship at risk of vandalism to extract one human. They had a nasty tendency of surviving being left for dead and being strangely touchy about people assuming that they had died. However, Zam was at that point bitterly regretting just going off rumors. He was hot, deliriously hot, even in the temperate fog of the unexplored world, from running. He dared not stop to pant away the heat and drink some cooling water, though. He kept an eye on the forest floor for any bodies of water, a lake, a river, a stream, a puddle, anything, to douse his fur with so that he could run for another minute. He hadn't gone back on his word with a human. He hadn't left one behind in danger. He had only done the pragmatic thing and assumed that the uplift, the doggo, had already died to the massive thing of claws and scales. That hadn't been the first time that band of mercs had lost a member to wild animals, or even some local primitives. So Zam had expected the humans to let leaves fall where they may. They had apparently counted Frodo as one of the family. The mercenaries apparently had startling loyalty to each other, if not always to the employer. Zam cursed his foolishness as he leapt to another branch in the fog and shuddered at the whooping call behind him. They had spotted him again. Didn't they ever stop? Evidently not, when it came to revenge. He might have talked his way clear of this current predicament if he had understood what the humans and Doggo's relationship was like. He had assumed that the Doggo was a servant of sorts. The humans don't practice slavery, but they do have hierarchies. This one seemed like a dominance one, fitting for mercs, and Frodo had clearly been at the bottom. Always kept in the middle of the pack, never trusted to range out alone, always a senior member looking over his shoulder. So naturally, Zam had assumed that Frodo was the most expendable, the newest and least cared about member. He had been wrong. "You left the new kid?" Maxim had asked sharply. "Yes, and it's good that you did not invest too much in him yet," Zam had answered. The other four and Maxim cast cold glances at Zam as they conferred in that secret Terran language impenetrable to translators. Zam had once tried to bribe a Terran smuggler into getting him a translation matrix for it, but had barely escaped from the encounter alive. He should have fled back to his ship then. He should have apologized for not being able to save Frodo instead of trying to console them that they hadn't lost much on the new member. Takoda stepped forward and said in the commercial English coldly, "Since you left our friend to die like Frey, that is how you die. Run, now. You have 60 seconds to get ahead." You can't be serious. We've been working together for years. "Why do you think that we're getting you a head start?" Finley asked through a cloud of noxious smoke. 50 seconds, Tarek advised, as he bent down and weighed a small stone from the ground in his hand. "Stupid prey is dead prey." Zam looked over the faces of his employees and found only blank slabs of stone there. He realized that he was going to die. Ever since, he'd been fleeing amongst the branches and relying on his superior climbing adaptations to keep out of range of the humans casting stones. They could cast them alarmingly far with only their arms, and Zam knew that they had their guns as well. He did not believe that their refraining was out of mercy. The stone whistled past his ear and snapped into the tree of the trunk that he was traversing, and Zam cursed his bright orange and blue spotted fur. So comely to woman, so vibrant and virile, but more than enough to show him up against the greens, greys, and browns of the forest. He was cursing a lot of things about himself that day. Another stone came whistling through the air and struck him in the left knee, just as he was jumping. He missed his landing and grasped empty air with his forelegs. He crashed to the ground, weeping. He struggled up onto trembling legs and started taking a shuddering step towards the nearest tree. A boot connected with Zam's ribs and sent him tumbling through the ferns and loam until he skidded to a halt in a bed of flowers. He tried to stand, but his legs gave out. He lay there, panting, and most of all cursed his scorn for his father's flower farming business. At least the blossoms about him were a beautiful place too. End of story. Story number 2. Trust Me Bro, written by EtNoxFactaEst. Message log of Drow Follox, from Lieutenant Drow Follox to Admiral Tigrint. Subject, promotion. Thank you for this incredible honor. It has long been my dream to command a ship in the Armada of the United Alliance of Planets. I will endeavor to lead with integrity and loyalty, and will help make the Dauntless one of the finest ships in the fleet. You can count on me, sir. From Captain Drow Follox to Joshua Vintlow. Subject, a few questions, please. Mr. Vintlow, I had a few questions about some of the documents you left behind. As the former captain of the Dauntless, I have no doubt that you know the ship and its crew far better than I. Still, I feel I must ask a few questions about Chief Engineer Goretti. He seems to have a larger supply budget than any other member of the crew. As Chief Engineer, this would seem reasonable. However, looking deeper into his order history, I found multiple purchases that seemed to be useless or downright wasteful. The raw ores and materials are understandable, even if the quantities are suspect. But why would he possibly need an automatic nail clipper, much less the 47 he requisitioned? And I see no reason why anyone on a starship would need a touch-activated explosives. That seems to be an extreme safety hazard at best. When I checked to see who approved these requests, I found that Corelli apparently has carte blanche on any requisitions. His personnel file states that, and I quote, he can do whatever he wants. Can you explain this to me? From Captain Drow Follox to Joshua Vintlow. Subject, a few questions, please. What do you mean, trust me, bro? From Captain Drow Follox to Chief Engineer Joseph Goretti. Subject, new restrictions. Mr. Goretti, I have reviewed your previous requisitions and work history and feel that some changes must be made. While your record aboard the Dauntless has been impressive, your unconventional actions must be addressed. It appears that my predecessor was willing to overlook these issues, but I feel that I cannot. Until further notice, your job duties are to be restricted to ship maintenance and ship maintenance alone. Thank you for your cooperation. From Captain Drow Follox to Chief Engineer Joseph Goretti. Subject, ship maintenance. Perhaps I should have been more clear in my previous email. When I spoke of only allowing ship maintenance, I mean ship maintenance in line with official fleet handbook and authorized specifications. I am aware that your recent work allows us to reach Warp 4 from a standstill in approximately 20% of the time. I know you believe that you can totally cut that time down more if the last requisition was approved. I have no idea why you think we need a dozen pairs of roller skates for this, nor do I want to know. Return the engine to its previous state immediately. Until further notice, you're limited to using only Class 3 devices and lower. That should be more than enough to accomplish your duties. From Captain Drow Follox to Chief Engineer Joseph Goretti. Subject, pirate encounter. I am unsure how to respond to your previous actions. I'll be the first to admit that your work did indeed save the ship, but I am uncomfortable with how you did so. As you stated, you followed my instructions to the letter. The fluid replicator core is indeed only a Class 3 device. It did not occur to me that you could weaponize it. Apparently, neither did the pirates who assaulted us, nor would, I suspect, any sentient race in the galaxy. While unorthodox, transmuting the enemy vessel's hull into chocolate pudding was frighteningly effective. I lament the fact that we'll be stuck eating those horrible nutrient cubes until it is replaced. But it is better than the vaporization we were facing. Look, I see that your methods are effective, but I can't just let you experiment without limits. In the future, send requests as to what you want to do. If you give me a good reason, I'll likely approve it. From Captain Drow Follox to Chief Engineer Joseph Garelli. Subject, re-request for 14 antimatter lawnmowers. No! Emphatically, no! Trust me, bro, it's not a valid reason. From Captain Drow Follox to Chief Engineer Joseph Garelli. Subject, emergency. Garelli, do something! We're surrounded and our shields won't hold. Just get us out of here. From Captain Drow Follox to Chief Engineer Joseph Garelli. Subject, re-emergency. Now is not the time for protocol. Whatever you want, it's approved. From Captain Drow Follox to Chief Engineer Joseph Garelli. Subject, I give up. You win. I have no idea how you did any of that. First, you somehow converted our cloaking device into some sort of phase engines. As a result, we got through the ships by literally going through the ships. That was not only unbelievable, it should have been downright impossible. Second, we didn't have a cloaking device, as far as I was aware, nor did we have any materials that could have remotely created one. But you did save all of us, so effective immediately, forget every restriction I put on you. Do what you want. From Captain Drow Follox to Admiral Tegrint. Subject, Chief Engineer Garelli. Yes, sir, I'm aware that the Garelli's expenditures are entirely outside of regulations, but I must point out that the Chief's actions have saved the ship multiple times over, and I know it's outside of official standards, but I can proudly report that our ship can now reach Warp 4 in less than 15% of the time required by other ships. No, I don't know how he did it, but overall, sir, I must strongly argue for his continued service on the vessel, and that his work be allowed to continue. From Chief Drow Follox to Admiral Tegrint. Subject, why should I allow any of this? Trust me, bro. End of story.